Right, evening guys. Another quick video. Something that drives me up the wall: the amount of different types of greases there are, mainly for automotive or for your cars. Constant array of millions of different types of ones, all stating to be the one you have to use. Most of it's simply not true. So very quickly, as quick as I can, I'm going to go through them. So let's start with copper grease. That's one you'll hear quite a lot about. So copper grease, it does do a job. It's designed to prevent seizing. So if you've got two metal components that are held together, it's not designed to be a lubricating grease. But what it is good for is something like wheel bolts, or wheel nuts. So you want to be able to undo them nuts easy enough, and what you don't want them to do is seize inside. So copper grease, that's what that does. So if you want to put it on your wheel nuts, then great, that will do that job. Rubber grease. Rubber grease is another one that you hear a lot about, and the main benefit of rubber grease is that it doesn't damage any rubber seals, bushes, housings, or anything like that. It's basically, a lot of greases are made from petroleum or petrol, and that can damage rubbers. We're going to go a little bit more into that a little bit later on, but yeah, rubber grease is going to be safe. It's not going to do any damage to any rubbers. Lithium grease. Lithium grease is probably one of the most common greases. Also, I'm going to come into the other one. So lithium grease is a good one for wheel bearings. It's got good resistance to water and moisture, and it also keeps its gloopiness, or its velocity, at different temperatures, so it'll stay pretty consistent regardless of what the temperature is, and that's why it works well in a wheel bearing. Again, the only downside of lithium grease is, because it's petroleum based, it can damage plastic and rubbers over the time. So if there's anything in there, normally in the brakes and that, it's not a good place to put it. Next one is moly grease or moly lithium, and that's a slightly modified lithium grease, and they're good for bearings, but they're actually designed for a different type of bearing. They're designed for bearings that have got extreme weight or pressure onto them, so not like a car bearing. Car bearing is quite a small bearing and there's not a great deal of strain on it, and moly lithium or moly is good for slower rolling ball bearings that have got taken a lot of weight. It's good for things like CV joints, or anything that rotates on a ball, that turns. I mean, a tow hitch would be a good example. That would be a good place for moly grease. Next one is silicon grease. Right, silicon grease is a newer one, if you like, and that's it's a non-petroleum grease, so therefore it's suitable for contact with any type of rubber or plastics, so like O-rings, things like that. It will actually safeguard them rubbers. It will stop them from perishing as well. So silicon grease is probably a favourite at the moment. White grease, another one. White grease is pretty much the same thing as lithium grease, but what you do find a lot of time with white grease, it comes in an aerosol form, so it's a thinner version of it, but it's got a really good contact value. So once it sticks to something, it will stay there. It's good for things like hinges, because it doesn't evaporate or disappear quickly. It will stay there for a long time. Right, brake grease. Basically, it's a silicon grease, but with a different name, just to identify it, to use it in brake linings and things like that. Not on the linings, but on the shoes and that. Next one is ceramic brake grease. So this is another formulation of silicon grease, and the difference between that and silicon grease is it's basically got something added to it that makes it non-conductive, and a lot of cars that have got things like ABS braking, it could end up, if you use the wrong grease, in the worst case scenarios, it could end up giving your ABS the wrong signals. So that's why they recommend using a ceramic brake grease, because of the non-conductiveness on it. So going through that all sounds great and pretty straightforward, but there is some discrepancies that don't really add up in there, and the main issue is to do with petroleum greases. Because petroleum greases, you'll read pretty much everywhere that they do damage rubber, and then you'll read someone else's account of it and they'll say no, it's perfectly good for rubber. And the reason for that is because rubber isn't the same as it used to be. A lot of products now that are classed as rubber don't actually come from a rubber tree where rubber originally come from. So they're a remade type of rubber, and they've got different chemical makeup. So a lot of the time, something like O-rings aren't actually made from rubber, so you don't generally have to worry. It depends how old your car is. The problem with all these greases is everyone has got their own different opinion on them, whether that be a specialist in engineering or in automotive. I'm neither of them. I'm just someone who's used grease over sort of 30-40 years, and it's my personal explanation of them. As I say, people argue and argue to the end of the world with other people that say they know everything about it. The outcome of this basically is what I've already said definitely counts. If you're going to go for one or two greases, then just a standard grease and a silicone grease, because the silicone grease is definitely not going to do any damage to any rubbers. I was going to go on about oils, but that's another story, so I will maybe do another post on oils. But an oil basically is a thinner grease, or grease is a thicker oil, whatever way you want to look at it. Well, I hope you found that some sort of help, and until we meet again, till next time, cheers and thanks.